formerly suicidal Redditors, what's something that kept you alive a little while longer and helped you to get through the dark times in your lives? My cat found me in the bush in the back of my house at 3 AM and wouldn't leave me alone. She headbutted me and rubbed into my legs as I stood there with the knife trying to get her tattoo away. Had her for 20 years until she passed 2 years ago. Something about her that night broke me out of the crushing darkness momentarily and allowed me to get therapy to deal with the problems. Love you, kiss. I called someone I barely knew a couple of days before I planned it to basically unload what I couldn't say to those closest to me. It sounds backwards, I know, but I wasn't really thinking straight back then. I don't think they understood the reason to the call because we shifted to talking about roommates and I had a good laugh for the first time in a while. I decided after we hung up that if a stranger could make me smile that I wanted to try to meet those who could make me happier and hopefully be that person for someone else. A year later and I can happily say I'm better and enjoying life. I found that the only real person though that can make me happy was myself. I just needed to give him a chance. That person that I originally called, I am still in contact with them but haven't told them how much they helped me that day yet, mostly out of being nervous, lol. I hope to repay them though with never leaving their side because they came to mine without even realizing it and I am forever grateful. My advice to anyone making this far and my response lol is it doesn't cost you anything to listen and be nice. Someday you may help someone more than you will ever realize. My 9-year-old daughter. About 18 months ago I was in a very bad place but I am a single dad and I would not do anything to hurt my daughter. Hey, so I've actually been the 9-year-old daughter. Don't do it. My cat helped me to keep going. Unfortunately she passed away, but I keep going with her in mind. What has helped me is to keep my mind busy at all times. I work on my YouTube videos or paint a lot. It keeps me focused on just that. I'm still depressed and suicidal, but haven't had an episode as I call them, for some months now, except some days. Came to say the same thing. The thought of my cat having to go back to the Humane Society and not understanding what was going on was enough to keep me going more than once. I was suicidal and taking Xanax but I took too much on accident. I could feel a weight on my chest type of feeling. I was scared shitless from it. The day after, when I finally felt like I was able to do something, I adopted a puppy. She's been my reason to get up in the morning for over a year. I remember reading somewhere where someone was suicidal in a forum saying they were going later that day or something and everyone was talking about it and someone replied something along the lines of, "Why don't you just go?" I've always wondered this about people who are suicidal. If you're really done, then why don't you leave everything behind? Start walking in a direction and just go. It doesn't matter where you end up or if you get killed along the way because that's what you were trying to do anyway. Something about that really resonated with me. Those of us with nothing to lose have everything to gain from this world. Knowing that my mum wouldn't have someone to walk her down the aisle when she married my now stepfather. My dad had died 3 years prior and I think it would have broken her completely. Hurting people was mine, too, even if it's just a janitor or cop. I don't want to make sad work for anyone ever. It'd be weird if I died and still had packages coming in the mail, so I try to keep something coming that I can look forward to. I used to really enjoy going to gigs, so when I was struggling with depression I'd make sure I had tickets to see a band I liked. On the particularly bad days, I'd think it'd be silly to do anything before I see them play. Seems a bit silly to write but it worked for me. I guess have something to look forward to, whatever it is. The thought that any of my students might look at my decision and choose to follow in my footsteps. I could accept my own death, but I couldn't stand the idea of theirs. When I was in 6th grade my science teacher committed suicide. It scarred me. I promised to myself to never kill myself because I didn't want anyone to feel the pain I felt on that day when they announced this to everyone. I finished a suicide note and folded it into my wallet on the bus ride back onto base after a weekend of binge drinking on the beach to avoid every person I could. When I got back to the barracks I looked at my rackmate and told him exactly what I wrote down in that note, and instead of making things worse he genuinely helped me and reminded me that not every Marine is meant to do a full term. Sometimes things just don't go as planned and it's okay to take that DD 214 early, even if it will disappoint your family. We still talk around the holidays every year. That's awesome of them. Glad you two keep in touch. A hug from a friend that lasted just a little longer than normal. It let me know that someone cared about me and was willing to invest in me more than just the minimum. It gave me the tiniest spark of hope where there had been none. Sometimes it's the small things that matter most. I know that feeling. Having friend issues growing up to finally finding a true friend who supports you in all ways is just the comfort my friends would tell me to end it all, but I just didn't want to do for them. So I kept on until I finally found the group of friends who accept me for who I am and have been there for me. The thought that killing myself meant those who didn't believe in me won. So I refused to die, out of spite. Watch me live and succeed in life, now. Thank you. I was standing on a bridge over the Mississippi River in Minneapolis with the intention to jump, and I took about 5 minutes to look over the edge and decide whether to land on the water or concrete slab 30 feet or so below. Then the thought crossed my mind to walk to the other side of the bridge and think about it on the way back. So I walked, then walked past where I was standing, and back to my car. When I got back into my car I burst into tears, ugly crying, screaming, hitting my steering wheel. The works. I was 3 steps from being dead. 1 onto the concrete, 1 over the rail, and the last off the edge. That was the lowest I had ever sunk. I think what kept me going was the thought of lost potential. I was working a monotonous job that didn't challenge me, had no friends, and had so much love to give to someone who I hadn't met yet. I didn't want to lose any of that, so I devoted my life moving forward to growth and challenging myself. Now, 2 years and 1 month later, I have my own house, a loving girlfriend, a fun and challenging job, and I'm in the best mental state of my life. I'm glad I didn't jump. Thank you. I'm just on the other side of that type of night and reading this really helps me believe there's light at the end of the tunnel. The rope broke. Overdose didn't work. Couldn't cut deep enough to lose enough blood. Realized that if I failed 3 separate times, maybe it's not my time. Several crappy people in my life, at the time, were not giving me the time of day and I wasn't giving myself enough chances to heal. Got help. Got rid of all the toxic people in my life who were causing me hurt and pain. Met someone who rocked my world and made me want to be a better version of myself. I'm still healing and learning, but you never really stop doing that. Kia kaha everyone. I fully planned to kill myself until I wrote a song in G minor. And it was really, really beautiful, and I wanted to see if anything else that beautiful was in me. In retrospect it was a really pretentious angsty piece of crap but it saved my life. There was a page online that talked me down and convinced me to give it 24 hours. So I made a deal with the devil. Fortunately I felt less crappy once the time was up and I continued to keep living. If I die my mom will have to get rid of my guinea pigs because she doesn't have time to take care of them. Also because killing myself would make my girlfriend sad. And I haven't met my half brother yet. And I want to know how my favorite show ends. They may be dumb reasons, but if it's stupid and it works it ain't stupid. I want to know how my favorite show ends. That was legit one of my reasons. The show, Game of Thrones. I use the upcoming video game release schedules of the years I would lose. Not even the announced releases but the ones in the future that I wouldn't even get to know about. Pretty lame but it was enough. Cyberpunk delays are saving lives. But seriously, good on you. 2021 looks extra sweet since there's a backlog of development from this year. Music really helps. Not even to make you feel better, but to know your emotions are shared by others. You're never alone really. The Middle by Jimmy Eat World was my go-to song. Still one of my favorites. I started watching Red Dwarf when I was younger. I honestly planned on ending everything but it was so funny and interesting I wanted to finish the whole series. I honestly believe it saved my life and took my mind away from the dark thoughts even for just 1 hour a day. Boys from the Dwarf. After my second attempt, I spent 2 weeks in hospital. They fed me coal. For 2 freaking weeks I crapped black and nurses cleaned up my crap. I killed myself but only the part that I hate. I killed everything I hate about me. Cleaned the toxic PPL around me. One day, I just said to myself no, you won't go anywhere like this. You will have what you deserve and if they don't give it to you, you will freaking take it. You will quit smoking, begin sports, get mental and physical strength. You won't just be nice and wait PPL to give it to you anymore. You will freaking take it. So it was my anger. It saved me actually. When you're so angry that you fix your life. Remembering how devastating it was when my brother killed himself. I couldn't do that to my kids. I'd rather be miserable for the rest of my life than put them through that heck. This is going to get buried considering how late I am to the party, but I still wish to share in case someone reads this and it helps them. The only thing that kept me from ending it all a little over a year ago was a small little kitten named Benvolio I had adopted with a woman who eventually dumped me. The dumping was merely one droplet in a myriad of droplets that eventually felt like a deluge I was drowning in. And at my worst it felt like the best option was to metaphorically just breath in the water so I could literally just die and never feel like this ever again. And I was close. 2 pills and some whiskey on the dresser, ready to go. A note next to it signed and everything. But then I saw Benvolio. He was sitting next to an empty food bowl and was staring at me apparently hungry and waiting for the person he loved and trusted most to feed and play with him. So I got up real quick, fed him, and then sat back down to stare at what I planned to kill myself with. And then I just couldn't. So I cried. I cried a lot thinking about what would happen to him when I was gone and how confused he would be when I didn't wake back up to feed him the next morning. So I didn't do it. I got blackout drunk instead. But I woke up the next morning, saw my cat's empty bowl, and was glad. For a brief second. For the first time in a long time. It's been about a year, and I'm still working to put my life into a place and order where I won't be as anxious all of the time. But I'm glad I'm not dead. And it feels now for the first time in a while like happiness is a feasible reality instead of an impossible fantasy. I won't pretend to know anyone else's pain, but I feel comfortable saying that it's not worth killing yourself. You may not feel like your life is impacting anyone or anything, but you are, even if that life you're impacting or are important to is that of a tiny little cat. The fact that by killing myself I would be even more of a disappointment and all the effort people have out towards me would just go to waste. It's never too late to seek help. You have to fix your own problems, but there are lots of people out there who would most definitely love to help. From people you know to complete strangers. You aren't a disappointment to anyone. That feeling is entirely in your head. People aren't putting effort into you. They are trying to understand you. I think the thing that helped me most was probably my parents. I had a very good relationship with them and they were always there to support me no matter what happened. There have been numerous times in my life where I felt like killing myself, but because of them, I never did it. They knew about my feelings and they were extremely supportive. I am not sure how much of an impact this had on me, but it definitely helped. I think the other thing that really helped me was my teachers. I had some fantastic teachers in high school and college. They were always there to help me out when I needed it most. I don't think I would be alive if it wasn't for them. It is very difficult to explain, but there have been a few other things that I think have helped me. One of them was my friends. They were always there for me. They did not really know about my depression or suicidal thoughts, but whenever I was feeling down, they were there for me and would lift up my mood. If it wasn't for them, I probably wouldn't be alive. I'm really jealous, since the people who helped you deal with it were the ones who drove me to it. However, I'm glad they were there for you. I can just imagine the difference it makes, even if in the end one is always responsible one's own recovery. The thought that anyone I cared about would think it was their fault and they would have to live with guilt. Didn't want that for them. Going to a funeral for someone who committed suicide. She was the same age as me. We grew up together. Not the best of friends, but I knew her through elementary, junior high, and high school. We were 19 when she passed. It strangely was around the same time I attempted. The look on her mother's face, it broke my stone heart. She hugged me and cried. I made my decision right there not to ever do it. I don't want to break my mother's heart. I have talked to few people who were on the verge. I has thus far been successful. The pain they feel, it is mine as well. Please look out for all of your friends. The ones that are loud and the ones that are quiet. We all suffer. Be someone's sunshine. I always tell myself that I'll wait until my dog dies to kill myself. She hasn't died yet, so I guess I'm still alive. There are a lot of dogs that need help. My dogs. Both passed unfortunately, and knowing my sister would be the one to find me since she always was the first to come home. My kids. Edit. Stay strong friends. Our kids need us now more than ever. Reach out if you need someone to listen. I start work at 11 PM CST, Saturday to Tuesday. I was looking for this answer, because it's mine too. I had a few attempts that landed me in the hospital. I was tired of hurting the people I loved over and over. I was really in love with my boyfriend at the time, now husband, and I hated when he came to visit me in the hospital and looked so defeated. I decided I was either going to do it or not. If my family and boyfriend had to go through all this again, it would only be one more time. The next time I was going to go to the store, buy a gun, and eat it. No more of these take a lot of painkillers and hope attempts. I figured if I wanted to die so badly, the method shouldn't matter. Death is death. I also decided that if I couldn't man up and do it right, I would try to make the most of my life. Turns out I just didn't have it in me to commit to such a brutal method. I considered it a few times. Still do. But I just can't. It's too scary. I take that to mean that I'm probably not committed enough to make this huge decision. Tried and survived. Pills with alcohol doesn't work like on TV. I vomited and wake up a day or two later in my own vomit and pee, so I don't want to be fined like that. Anyway, things got better and now I'm over it. Parents and also video games. I wish I could make a love letter explaining to every developer personally how they saved me through those dark times by creating media which started from simple arcade games to breathing worlds that also are cinematic masterpieces. Sometimes the gameplay makes up for it instead of the story, while sometimes you need a bit of story with that gameplay. I'll just point out the main one. Valve, thank you for making media which helped me through dark times. I've played most of the games that you've made from L4D to CS 1.6. I can't thank you enough for bringing memories and a distraction to keep me away from that noose. Even if you're a business, I want you to succeed further since you've earned it. I loved the Left 4 Dead series and replayed Portal and Half-Life multiple times over. Not to mention the mods too. You deserve the breakup until Half-Life Alyx, and the fact that you even made HL. Gives me hope for the gaming industry. I love Valve and I hope you do too. Cringy, but there was a thread going around on Tumblr that I read while planning my second attempt that discussed the medical realities of failed suicide attempts. How common they were and the often debilitating injuries the survivors were left with afterwards, such as cut ligaments and tendons leading to loss of function of the hands after cutting wrists, or brain damage after a failed hanging attempt, and so on. The brutal and frank discussion of how common it was to fail really stuck with me after my first attempt had failed, and stopped me from going through with my second attempt. It's weird that it was mainly just the embarrassment and fear of failure that kept me from trying to end it again. Nothing deeply profound or meaningful, just me being awkward, I guess. Similar, I was researching the best way to kill myself once, and it said go into the woods, dig a hole, get in, cover it with branches, put a certain gun with certain bullets in your mouth, and it just sounded like a huge pain in the butt, and risky, and gross. I was just like, frick it, there's no good way to do this. Telling myself to suck it up and get on with it, because I have a job to do and a responsibility to the people around me. Sounds counterintuitive, but it became really motivating for me. I think a lot of my feeling depressed came from feeling useless and out of control. So when I realized I had a responsibility to make a contribution to the world and to not let other people down, it became empowering and flipped things around for me. Things still get tough, but I keep the same mindset. My favorite quote from LOTR. Frodo, I wish the ring had never come to me. I wish none of this had happened. Gandalf, so do all who live see such times. But that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what we do with the time that's given to us. Once in high school, I just wanted to see my friends one more time. Then I got accepted into a top-rated university and I told myself to just make it through the year and then I could move across the country and get away from my family. Then my senior year I figured that since the room tuition was covered for the year, I might as well stay and enjoy it. And then for every year since then, the only thing keeping me going is a fan convention for my favorite TV show. You just gotta find something. That one thing, and then find one more after that. I'm okay, Game of Thrones. Really? Not season 8, of course. Sometime around season 4 or 5, whichever came out in spring, I made a really half-assed suicide attempt and was going to try again. I just wanted to wait a week until the first episode of the new season. It came and I wanted to watch the next one. By mid-season my meds finally kicked in and the weather got really nice, so I got through. Having pets, especially having ones that would be a challenge to adopt away, would be put down, such as a pit bull and a very sick cat. In essence, I'd have killed them, and I couldn't ever do that. I was going out to end it all when a friend texted me asking how I was doing. In the darkest time of my life, them reaching out helped me realize that I wasn't completely alone. My mantra was having suicidal thoughts doesn't mean I'm suicidal. Bit strange in hindsight, but it helped me. My brain was hijacked by a sickness. It wasn't me. I'm sick. I'm not thinking rationally, so I'm not making any big decisions right now. You are not your thoughts. You have the thought I could throw myself off the bridge into the freeway and acknowledge the thought and let it pass. I did my best to take care of myself, like a sim character, although I still spent most of my time in bed fantasizing about self-harm. Looking back, my thoughts at that time were really strange. I really wasn't thinking rationally, and I'm glad I was able to recognize that. I mean, ultimately there's nothing more logical than existentialism, unfortunately, but just because it's a crappy truth doesn't mean you have to hyper-focus on it. Healthy people don't obsess about the heat death of the universe. I don't have like a cute story or moment. I sank into the bog over the course of 10 years, and I clawed my way out over the next 3 years. 3 years with good mental health now, and it's this whole way of life I didn't even know. Like life on easy mode. It's amazing. You deserve this, too. You can get here. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.